Sir, my mom has a bracelet just like yours.
The wine glass slipped from Malik's hand and shattered against the marble floor. Conversation, music, the clinking of cutlery, everything blurred into a long, ringing echo as he stared at the girl in the too big t-shirt and dirt-streaked sneakers. She couldn't be more than 12. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, cheeks hollow, eyes too old for her age. One of the waiters had her by the arm, trying to drag her away from the glittering kitchen of the rooftop restaurant. The girl's gaze wasn't on the broken glass or the furious manager. It was fixed on Malik's left wrist, on the thin silver bracelet, the one he had sworn only 2 people in this world ever had. For a second, his chest forgot how to move. "What did you just say?" he whispered. The girl swallowed, but she didn't look away. "My mom," she said. "She has the same bracelet. She says it's the only good thing she kept from before." Before. Malik's heart slammed against his ribs. The party lights, the skyline of Saigon glowing beyond the rooftop, the cameras flashing, everything tilted. He had built an empire up here, above the city. A black kid from a working-class neighborhood who'd become a star chef, a restaurant owner, and, most important of all, an adoptive single dad. He'd climbed out of the dark. He just never expected it to catch up. To understand why one sentence from a street kid could crack his life wide open, you'd have to go back. Back to the kitchen heat, to the sound of a lullaby, to a black man stirring a pot while trying to raise a little boy on his own. On most mornings, Malik's world started with the hiss of a pan and the clatter of a tiny spoon. "Dad, the eggs are burning." "They're not burning," Malik said, flipping the omelet with a practiced wrist. "They're getting character." 7-year-old Theo squinted over the table, dark curls sticking up in every direction. "You said that last week, and they tasted like sadness." Malik laughed, the sound low and tired but real. The kitchen of their small apartment was cramped, windows fogged with steam, but it was home. A cartoon was murmuring on the TV in the corner, and a half-finished drawing of a rocket ship lay on the table. Theo was not his blood. Malik had met him at a crowded orphanage on the edge of the city, a baby who wouldn't stop crying until Malik picked him up. The social worker had called it a coincidence. Malik had felt something closer to destiny. Raising a kid alone in a foreign city was hard, sure. Doing it as a black man, in a place where people stared at his skin before they saw his smile, was harder. Being a black single adoptive father running a high-pressure kitchen, some days it felt impossible. But when Theo's skinny arms wrapped around his waist in a rushed goodbye hug before school, when those big brown eyes lit up because Daddy came to the school play even if he smelled like onions and smoke, it all made sense. "Remember, Maya's picking you up today," Malik reminded him. "I'll be at the new opening tonight." Theo made a face. "She makes me do homework right away." "That's why I like her," Malik said. "Now eat your sadness eggs. We're late." He set the plate down, and the thin silver bracelet on his wrist glinted under the fluorescent light. Theo's eyes flicked to it, as they always did. "That from your old band?" "Old life," Malik said softly. He almost never talked about it. About the girl with the soft singing voice and the nervous laugh. About the nights in the tiny bar where he cooked cheap food while she sang to a handful of drunk tourists. About the promise they'd made, tugging matching silver bracelets on each other's wrists like teenagers, even though they were already too old and too broke to be that naive. About how she'd disappeared. Her name had been Lily, a Vietnamese singer with a notebook full of songs and a family who hated that she loved a black-line cook who barely spoke their language. One night, she'd gone home to talk to them properly. She never came back. No note, no call, just silence. Malik had blamed himself for not being enough, not rich enough, not good enough, not safe enough to build a life with. Eventually, the pain hardened into something he could carry. Work, long shifts, one daring restaurant, then another. And then Theo, who turned his apartment from an echo into a home. But he'd never taken the bracelet off. Not even when the first Silver Moon finally opened, with a neon sign carrying the name of the song Lily had written but never recorded. He'd put her melody in his restaurant instead. The first time he saw the girl, she was sitting on the steps behind the restaurant, coins clinking in a plastic cup beside her. He was on a break between lunch and dinner service, apron thrown over his shoulder, scrolling absent-mindedly through supplier messages. The alley smelled of old oil and rain. Bins lined the wall, and the buzz of scooters drifted over. At first, he only noticed her because she was humming. It wasn't loud, just a thread of sound, barely above the noise of the city. A simple, repeating melody, familiar in a way that made the hairs on his arms stand up. He stopped. The girl hugged her knees, chin resting on them, eyes half closed as she hummed. A few wrapped candies lay in her lap. The cup of coins was barely filled. "Hey!" he called out in Vietnamese. "You can't sit here, kid." She startled, hands flying to her chest. The humming cut off. "Sorry, sir," she said quickly. "I'll move, I was just resting." Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been shouting all day. Malik took a step closer. "What were you singing?" She shrugged, guarded now. "Just a song my mom likes." "What's it called?" "I don't know." She paused, then added, "She calls it Silver Moon, but I don't think that's the real name." The alley seemed to tilt for a moment. Silver Moon. Malik's fingers closed reflexively around the bracelet on his wrist. He heard Lily's voice from years ago, soft over the squeak of a cheap mic. "I wrote it for us, for when we finally get out of this place." He forced a smile. "You hungry?" The girl hesitated, eyes darting to the back door of the restaurant. "If I take food, they get mad sometimes," she whispered. "They say it makes the place look dirty." "They won't get mad," Malik said. "I own the place." She blinked up at him, as if trying to decide if a black man in a flour-stained t-shirt could really own anything here. He disappeared inside and came back with a small container of leftovers. Rice, grilled chicken, some vegetables. Nothing plated, nothing pretty, just hot and real. "Here," he said. Her fingers brushed the container. They were ice cold. "Thank you," she murmured. I'll pay you back when I sell more candy." "You don't have to pay me back." He paused. "What's your name?" "Lana." He nodded. "I'm Malik." She glanced at his wrist then, just for a second, as if something glinted in the corner of her eye. But she said nothing. He didn't think about her again until Theo mentioned her over dinner a few nights later. "Dad?" Theo said through a mouthful of noodles. "There's this girl who hangs near your restaurant. She gave me a candy today." "You took candy from a stranger?" Malik raised an eyebrow. Theo rolled his eyes. "She's not a stranger. Her name's Lana. She's nice, and she said her mom used to be a singer." The chopsticks paused halfway to Malik's mouth. "A singer?" "Yeah," Theo said. "She said her mom used to sing in bars and stuff, but she got sick, so she can't anymore. Oh, and it's super weird. Her mom's favorite song has the same name as your restaurant. Isn't that funny?" Funny wasn't the word Malik would have chosen. "What else did she say?" he asked, keeping his tone light. Theo shrugged. "That her mom used to date a guy who was, like, super good at cooking and kinda like you." He squinted at Malik. "She said he was black. There aren't many black people in Saigon, right?" Malik's heart dropped to somewhere around his shoes. He took a slow breath. He didn't want to scare Theo, or himself. "Cities are big," he said. "Sometimes stories overlap. Eat your noodles." But that night, after he'd tucked Theo into bed and hummed the soft melody of Silver Moon the way he always did, He lay awake for a long time staring at the ceiling, counting the coincidences. A song. A bracelet design he'd thought was one of a kind. A sick-singer mother who used to love a black chef. Coincidence could only stretch so far before it began to look like a pattern. The rooftop opening was supposed to be the peak of everything. Silver moon, sky. The highest restaurant in the city, literally. Glass walls, a view of Saigon's lights spilled out like scattered jewels. Investors had flown in. Food critics were here. A lifestyle vlogger was live streaming in the corner, narrating every dish. Maya, his manager, sharp eyes, sleek bun, clipboard in hand, hovered at his elbow. "Breathe, Malik," she murmured. "You've done this 100 times." "Not up this high," he said, adjusting his cuff. He wore a tailored black suit instead of his usual chef whites, but he'd insisted on keeping the bracelet on. It peeked out whenever he reached for a glass or shook a hand. "You got Theo settled?" she asked. "Yeah, he's at my mom's tonight." Malik smiled faintly. "He said if anyone tries to take my picture, I have to look less grumpy." Maya laughed. "Then we're doomed." In the kitchen, the staff moved like a machine. Plates went out, compliments came back. Malik did interviews, posed for photos, thanked investors for their faith in a black kid with big ideas and a love of fusion food. He was halfway through a toast when he saw the commotion at the back entrance. A waiter whispering with security, a skinny figure wedged between them. The world narrowed. Lana. Her hair was damp from the humidity, sandals slipping on the polished floor. Her t-shirt was stained. She clutched a plastic bag that crinkled in her fist. "I told you, kid. You can't just walk in here," the security guard hissed in Vietnamese. "This is not your place." "But I just wanted something to bring back to my mom," she pleaded. "She hasn't eaten since yesterday." Malik's feet were moving before his brain caught up. "It's okay," he called. "Let her go." The staff froze. Investors turned their heads. The vlogger's camera swung toward them, hungry for drama. "Chef, we can handle this," one of the managers said through a tight smile. "We don't want—" "I said let her go," Malik repeated. The guard loosened his grip. Lana stumbled forward, catching herself on a gleaming prep table. She straightened, wiped her face on her sleeve, and then her eyes landed on Malik, more accurately, on his wrist, on the bracelet. Time stuttered. She stared, breath catching, and for a moment she looked exactly like Theo did when he saw something magical on TV. Then her gaze filled with something harsher, recognition, maybe, and fear of what that recognition meant. "Sir," she whispered, "my mom has a bracelet just like yours." The words hung in the air. The toast died on Malik's tongue. The crystal glass slid from his fingers, shattering on the marble. Light refracted in the shards at his feet. "What did you say?" he managed. Lana swallowed, voice shaking, but honest. "She has the same bracelet, same pattern. She sleeps with it on. She says it's from the only man who ever really loved her." The room held its breath. "What's your mom's name?" Malik asked, his voice hoarse. "Lily," Lana said. The name hit him like a punch. Lily, the girl from the smoky bar, the singer, the dreamer who'd sworn she'd never let her family stop her from loving him. Missing for 12 years. "Where is she?" he said. Lana looked down at her cheap sandals. "Our landlord said if we don't pay this week, we'll get kicked out. Mom's sick. She doesn't sing anymore. I thought maybe I could get some food for her. She doesn't need much, just—" Her lip trembled. Malik didn't remember deciding to move. One second he was standing in the center of his shining success. The next, he was beside her. He didn't care that cameras were pointed at them, that investors were watching, that somewhere online, people were already commenting on the black chef and the street kid in the middle of a luxury restaurant. All he saw was Lily's eyes in Lana's face. "We're leaving," he told Maya quietly. You can finish up without me. Malik, Maya started, soft and worried. Please, he said. She looked at him, at the girl, at the bracelet glinting between them, and nodded once. Go. Lana's home was 2 bus rides and a long walk away from anywhere tourists ever wandered. The alleys narrowed as they went. Neon gave way to flickering bulbs. The air thickened with the smell of damp concrete and frying oil. Kids ran barefoot, kicking plastic bottles. A stray dog lifted its head as they passed. Here, Lana said, stopping in front of a rusted metal door on the 2nd floor of a crumbling building. She pushed it open. The room was small, just big enough for a narrow bed, a rickety table, and a fan that clicked with every slow rotation. A cough echoed from the bed, dry and sharp. On the thin mattress lay a woman, hair tangled, cheeks sunken. A faded blanket was pulled up to her chest. Around her left wrist, catching the weak light, was a thin silver bracelet, the twin of Malik's. Mom, Lana whispered, I brought someone. The woman's eyes fluttered open. For a heartbeat, Malik saw her as she had been. Eyeliner smudged from laughing too much, lipstick crooked, hair falling over a microphone as she leaned toward him after her set. Then the image dissolved into the frail woman on the bed. Lana, she rasped, you shouldn't bring strangers here. Malik stepped closer, words stuck in his throat. It's me, he said. Her gaze focused slowly, traced the edge of his jaw, the line of his shoulders, the color of his skin. Malik? She whispered. He nodded. I must be dreaming, she coughed, a broken laugh tangled in the sound. I used to dream about this, about you finding us before. She trailed off. He sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. Memories crowded the room, the smell of cheap perfume and frying oil, the way her fingers used to curl around his when the world felt too big. Why didn't you come back? He asked, voice low. Why didn't you tell me? She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering what little strength she had. My parents found out, she said, about you, about the baby. They told me if I stayed with you, they would make sure you never worked again. They knew people. They said a black man with no papers was easy to remove. Malik's stomach nodded. I tried to fight, Lily went on. But they told me you would be better off without us, that I was ruining your life, that you'd never forgive me for getting pregnant. So I ran. I thought if I stayed away, you could be free. Free? He repeated, disbelieving. You call 12 years of thinking I wasn't good enough to keep you free? Tears pooled in the corners of her eyes. I was a coward, she said simply. By the time I realized that, it felt too late. You were everywhere, on TV, on the internet, in articles. The black chef who turned his life around. You had this big, shining life. You had a son. I didn't want to drag you down into this. She gestured weakly around the tiny room. Lana stood near the door, back pressed against the peeling paint, arms wrapped around herself, like if she held on tight enough, she might stay invisible. Mom, you knew him? She whispered. Lily's shoulders shook. Baby, She coughed again, harder this time. Lana, please, can you go to Mrs. Hoa and ask if she has some medicine? The one in the green bottle? I can... Malik began, but Lily shook her head. Just, please. Lana hesitated, then stepped outside, leaving the door slightly ajar. The room felt even smaller. I had a DNA test done, Malik said quietly. I had to know. He pulled out his phone, the screen still open on the message he'd received an hour ago in the back of a taxi. Lily looked at him like she already knew the answer. It says Lana is my daughter, he continued. 99.99% chance. A tear slid down Lily's cheek. "You think someone like you," she whispered, echoing a voice from long ago, "is really meant to be a father? That's what my mother said about you, back then." He flinched. He remembered that day, standing in their cramped living room, her mother's cold eyes sweeping over his skin like it was dirt tracked onto her clean floor. He hadn't realized Lily had carried those words like poison all these years. "Do I think I'm perfect?" Malik said, his own voice shaking now. "No, I screw up all the time. I overwork. I forget to call my own mom back. Some nights I come home so tired I can barely say goodnight to Theo. And that kills me." He leaned forward, catching Lily's gaze. "But I am a father," he said. "I show up. I fight. I cook the damn eggs even when they burn. And I should have been there for Lana. You took that from me. You took that from her." "I know," Lily whispered. "I am so sorry." The door creaked. Lana stood there clutching a chipped mug instead of medicine. Her eyes were wide, shining. "What do you mean?" "Should've," she asked. "What is he saying, Mom?" Lily's lips trembled. "Baby," she said softly. "Remember when I told you your dad was a good man, but complicated? That he was busy with important things?" Lana nodded, confusion furrowing her brow. "I lied," Lily said. "The truth is, I was scared. I didn't let him know about you. I thought I was protecting him. I thought I was protecting us. But I just made us all suffer." She looked at Malik. "Tell her," she whispered. "Please." Malik's throat felt too small for the words, but he said them anyway. "Lana," he said, shifting to face her. "I had a test done today. A test that tells you if two people are related by blood." Her fingers tightened on the mug. "And?" she whispered. He reached out, slow and gentle, like he was approaching a wounded animal that might bolt. "It says," he said, "that I'm your father." The mug slipped from Lana's hands. Tea splashed across the cracked floor. No one moved to pick it up. "You're my dad?" she breathed. He nodded. "I didn't know," he said. "But I should have tried harder. I should have looked for answers instead of burying myself in work and pretending the past was dead. I'm sorry, Lana. I am so sorry I wasn't there when you were born, when you took your first steps, when you were scared at night." She took a step forward, then another, until she was close enough for him to see the tiny scar above her eyebrow, the way her bottom lip quivered just like Lily's used to. "Where were you?" she choked out. "When Mom was coughing up blood and people called us trash? When they told me my dad probably never wanted me?" His chest caved in. "In the kitchen," he said honestly. "Trying to prove to a world that already decided who I was that I could be more. Trying to give Theo a life better than the one I had. Trying not to think about the girl who left without a word." He swallowed. "But I'm here now, and I won't leave." The room was silent except for the fan's tired whir and Lily's uneven breathing. Lana stared at him, small fists clenched, tears streaming down her face. Then, with a sob that sounded like something breaking free, she launched herself forward. He caught her. Her bones felt too light in his arms, like a baby bird, all angles and fear. He held her like he'd held Theo the first night he brought him home. Carefully, reverently, terrified of dropping this new, fragile universe he'd just been given. Behind them, Lily covered her mouth with her hand and turned her face into the pillow, shoulders shaking. For the first time in years, Malik let himself cry. Not the quiet tears he'd shed alone in the dark when work went wrong, or when Theo asked too many questions about why he didn't have a mom. Real tears. Tears of grief, of anger, of wild, disbelieving joy. He cried for the years lost, for the nights Lana had sold candy under neon lights while he plated dishes for people who would forget his name in a week. For every time he'd looked at his bracelet and wondered if Lily was still wearing hers somewhere. He cried because the answer was yes, and because that yes had a face and a name and a pair of arms clinging to him with desperate force. The next weeks were messy. Lawyers, doctors, conversations with social workers and neighbors. Lily's health was worse than she'd let on. Chronic, complicated, not hopeless, but not simple either. "Treatment will cost," the doctor said, avoiding Malik's eyes. "A lot." "Just tell me what to do," Malik replied. "I own restaurants. I'll sell one if I have to." He moved Lily and Lana out of the crumbling building and into a small, clean apartment close to the hospital. Not the penthouse investors wanted him to live in. Somewhere with sunlight and a balcony where Lana could do her homework. Telling Theo was a different kind of hard. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where sadness eggs had become a running joke. "So," Theo said slowly, eyes flicking between Malik and Lana, who perched stiffly on the edge of her chair. "She's really my sister?" "Half-sister," Malik said. "But sister is shorter." Theo swung his legs. "Does that mean I'm not really your kid anymore?" The question sliced through Malik. He scooted his chair closer, taking Theo's small hand in his. "Theo, look at me." Theo's eyes met his. "You're my son," Malik said. "Paper or blood, it doesn't matter. I chose you. I'd choose you 1,000 times over. Lana being my daughter too doesn't change that. It just means our table gets louder." Theo glanced at Lana. She held her breath. After a long moment, he said, "Okay, but I get to show her where you hide the good snacks." Lana blinked. "There are good snacks?" Malik groaned. "Traitor." Theo grinned. Lana smiled back, small but real. Something in Malik's chest eased. At night, after everyone was asleep, he sat on the balcony of the new apartment with Lily, the city humming below them. "I saw the video," she said once, voice thin but teasing, "of you on the rooftop with the girl in the dirty shirt. The internet calls you the hero chef with the secret daughter." Malik snorted. "Yeah, well, they like a drama more than they like good food." "People see you now," Lily murmured. "Not just the black guy in the kitchen. The dad. The man who didn't walk away." He looked at her, at the bracelet glinting softly on her wrist. "I wanted to walk away," he admitted. "From you. From the pain. I tried. I worked so hard I didn't have to feel anything except exhaustion." "And now?" she asked. He glanced through the balcony door at the couch inside, where Theo and Lana had fallen asleep in a heap of limbs and blankets after a movie. "Now," he said, "I'm tired for better reasons." She smiled, lines at the corners of her eyes. Maya visited sometimes, bringing files and scolding him for missing meetings. But she also brought soup for Lily and new sketchbooks for Lana, quietly sliding them onto the table like it was nothing. One evening, as they closed up the original Silver Moon, she nudged him with her shoulder. "You're different," she said. "I'm more tired," he replied. "That too, but lighter. You know, for a man who just discovered he has a teenager and a very loud internet scandal." He wiped down the counter. "Yeah, well, I'm a black single dad with 2 kids now. That's a full sitcom season right there." "You're not single," Maya said casually. "You have 2 tiny bosses." He laughed. For now, that was enough. Years later, people still came to Silver Moon, but they also came to the little place down the street. A community kitchen with a hand-painted sign that read, "Silver Moon Foundation." Kids who sold lottery tickets and flowers on the street could come in for a hot meal and a place to sit. Parents who worked night shifts could pick up food to take home. No one had to prove they deserved to eat. On Saturday nights, if you walked by at the right time, you could hear music drifting out. A teenage girl stood by a second-hand microphone, guitar slung over her shoulder, singing a simple melody about a silver moon over a crowded city. Her voice was strong, clear, a little rough at the edges in a way that made you want to lean closer. At the back, a boy sketched the scene in a notebook, adding tiny rockets and dramatic shading as if everything needed more space. At the stove, a black man with a silver bracelet on his wrist stirred a pot, the lines on his face deeper now, but his eyes softer. When the song ended, the girl put the guitar down and walked over to him. "Dad," Lana said, bumping her shoulder against his arm, "you're burning the sauce." "It's not burning," Malik said. "It's getting character." From a table nearby, Theo groaned. "You've been saying that for 10 years. It was never funny." Lily sat in the corner, wrapped in a warm scarf despite the heat, a mug of tea in her hands. Her health had improved, not perfect, but steady. She watched them with a look that was part wonder, part apology, part peace. Malik turned the heat down and glanced at the bracelets, hers and his, catching the light. "You know," he said quietly, "for the longest time I thought this was a reminder of what I'd lost." Lily raised an eyebrow. "And now?" He smiled. "Now it's a reminder of how we found our way back." Outside, rain began to fall, soft against the roof. The kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and laughter and something like healing. Maybe years from now, people would forget the viral video of the black chef and the street kid in the fancy restaurant. Maybe the headlines would fade and the comments would disappear into the endless scroll. But a girl named Lana would remember the night she looked at a stranger's wrist and saw her whole life change. A boy named Theo would remember the day he realized love didn't get divided when a family grew. It multiplied. And a man named Malik would remember the sound of that first sentence, ringing through a room full of crystal and cameras like a bell cutting through smoke. "Sir, my mom has a bracelet just like yours." If this story brushes against something in your own past, if you've ever felt lost and then suddenly, somehow found, know this: you're not alone out there. And if you'd like, you can imagine pulling up a chair in that warm little kitchen and leave a few words for Malik, for Lana, for Theo, or for the version of yourself that's still looking for home.